Section 3.4 is called the library of functions, and what this is 8 different functions that are very common that we want to develop an intuition about. We want to be able to recognize them and know their names. So let's start with the first one. It's called the identity function, y equals x. Of course, we can, for all of these, we could replace y with f of x and write it in function notation, f of x equals x. But in this case, we're just using y. But this is a function. It's the identity function. So let's graph this. If using our table here, if x is negative 2, well, if y is the same thing as x, then y would be negative 2. If x is negative 1, y would be negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. And now let's get an idea of what this graph looks like. X is negative 2, y is negative 2, negative 1, negative 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2. And so what we see is we have a line that's going at a 45-degree angle through the origin, through the first quadrant, and the third quadrant. This is the positive, positive, negative, negative quadrant. So that's the identity function in its most basic form. We call this most basic form often the parent function because I could change it in a little bit and write y equals 2x, right? It would still go through the origin, but not at the exact same angle. It would change things a little bit. So that would be an identity function that's been modified some. Okay, that's our first one, identity. We need to know the name, we need to recognize it. All right, the square function. Now we've seen this. This is a quadratic, right? We've seen quadratics since section 1.2 where we had, x squared plus 4x minus 4, all kinds of different quadratic equations, and we've looked at some quadratic functions to this point, but this is as basic as you could write one, right? It doesn't have any coefficient in front of the x squared. We don't have any plus x to the first term, but this is the same thing as our most basic square function. So what do you think this looks like? Hopefully you've got an idea. Let's plug in negative 2 for x, and when we square negative 2, we get positive 4. When we square negative 1, we get positive 1. When we square 0, we get 0. Square 1, we get 1. Square 2, we get 4. Okay, so we're at negative 2, positive 4, negative 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 4. And yes, we have formed our parabola. Okay, that is the most basic function, form of the square function.